Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Retained Recruiter Show. My name is James.
My name is Jo. Thank you very much for joining us all this morning. And yes, we have got a very good 30 minutes for you, haven't we, James?
Yeah, we're really excited to talk about another one of our favourite subjects. We have so many, Jo, that keep us going through all these things. And that's because the world of recruitment is rich with things to do, things to keep
challenges,
absolutely.
problems.
Well, opportunities, we could call them those. And today, Jo, we're going to be talking about client advocacy. So why don't you explain what that means and what we're going to be talking about in today's show?
Yeah, of course. So, we're going to be talking about the best way to increase your revenues, and the easiest way to increase your existing revenues is with your existing clients. So we're going to look at a couple of things. We're going to look at the best ways to actually create a best-in-show service, which is going to create those repeat clients of the future. We're going to look at a social proofing strategy. So how could you use social proofing in order to then maximize existing client relationships whilst also trying to bring in some new client relationships. And then the third thing we're going to look at is actually why word of mouth, even though we have all this technology at our disposal now, why word of mouth is actually still one of the best forms of client generation that you could possibly use, and all really with the umbrella term that we're going to talk about today, which is client advocacy. And actually, I know, we run training sessions all the time, and the ones that seem to be getting the most attention at the moment are the candidate ones, candidate generation and candidate sourcing and, candidate control, because that's the buzz theme of the last couple of months. I personally think that's going to change. I think there is a sea change afoot. And I also think that a very, very busy market with lots and lots of jobs produces very transactional recruiters who maybe don't have client relationships at the foremost of their minds. So we've got a bit of a Cassandra complex, haven't we, James? Because we tend to talk about things that we know are about to happen. Yeah. But when you're in it, it's very difficult to see what the next opportunity is going to be.
It is. And Jo, I remember going back, I'm going back probably 10, 12 years to just coming out of the 2008, 2009 financial meltdown. And I always remember I was at a conference that I was running, and I think a few of my team thought I'd lost it a little bit, not and because the slide I put up on the screen was a heart, a big red heart. And I sort of, so what does that mean? I said, it's about love. You've got to love your clients. You've got to love your candidates. And if you don't look after them now, when you're busy because you're too busy, what's going to happen when things get quiet? You can't call them and say, I've got nothing to do. Can I talk to you now? And I think client advocacy is one of those scenarios where you've got to look after your clients. Otherwise, things happen. Imagine this situation, Jo. You've got to, and so let's get into talk about client advocacy. You've had a good client. We all know that we've been working with them for years. You look back and when we ask clients, who's on your client list? It's a good client. I've been working for the years. They all give me lots of jobs. I've done lots of placements, multiple placements. Yeah, we've been to, their Christmas parties. We played golf together, all of that type of stuff. So they're one of your favorite clients, and then one day out of the blue, they phone you and tell you that headquarters have decided to put in some new systems, some new tech. So for example, I came across one quite recently, Workday, and they said, it's all done through that now, and that's going to be our ATS, even though I didn't know it did that. But anyway, so they no longer require your services, and your client says to you, I'm sorry, Jo, but we've been told we've got to use this. So how do you feel?
Yeah, gutted. Absolutely gutted, and probably quite surprised as well. I've had this situation before. I've coached recruiters and owners of recruitment businesses who have had this situation before as well. And either because, they've been working with the client for so long, but not really advanced their service to move with the speed and the size of the business. So they've almost been left behind. Or, of course, because just because you're in a relationship, it doesn't mean it's a good relationship, does it?
No, and in those scenarios, you feel cheated, you feel betrayed, you feel let down. You think it's unfair because I've done all this work for you.
And if grand has just fallen off your P&L, if not more.
And again, we've seen that a lot in the world of contingency, and it's actually how one of the stories behind how our intro was formed. Is for our sister company, the recruitment business, Grass Greener Group, an executive search firm. They started out as a contingent recruiter, and they had a client they're doing all this work for, and then one day, stop.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, the forward pipeline of 100, 200K is gone. And it makes you think, actually, is that relationship right? But if we think about it, Joe, if you think around to personal life, for those of you listening outside the UK, there's a statistical body in the UK called the ONS, the Office of National Statistics. And they say that 1 in 3 marriages in the UK end up with a divorce. And you've got to ask yourself, well, why? And what we put it down to is something called relationship fatigue. Yeah, because you become tired of relationship, you just take it for granted. And business and personal relationships, there's so many things in common between these two that we've got to look at what you're doing. So this is what advocacy is about. So if we move it away from personal, and I'm not saying 1 in 3, but
that's a different podcast.
Okay, yeah.
We are relationship counsellors. Yes.
Yeah,
well,
let's bring it back. Yeah, we do have that role as well, don't we? But let's bring it back around to business relationships now. Yeah, but with the thing, there are things that we can see the analogies between business and personal in terms of how things run. And the way to overcome some of this is what we call becoming a client advocate, and advocacy and that side of things. And the reality is we've got to set the expectations of what we're doing with the client and what that actually means for everyone. So I don't know what thoughts you've got on that particular piece, Joe.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, if you don't believe that you have to look after your clients, because if you don't, somebody else will, and that your client, you do have client churn, you have client attrition, regardless of, some of it is natural, it's very natural attrition. Some of it is produced as a result of maybe not having the service, not the best service, but the service that the client is expecting. Because as you just said, it's all about perception versus reality here. But actually, if you don't believe me, go and have a look at your client list or where your revenues have come in from over the last 3 to 5 years. Year on year, look at your churn. A percentage of the businesses you worked with last year, you won't be working with this year. And of course, COVID's kind of, got bollard right in the middle of it. But COVID aside, if you go back and have a look, it's absolutely true. So I really don't think that we can rely on our existing clients. Hence, you always need to be doing new business. But that's not what today is about. It's about creating situations. And I know Plummer's probably going to talk about this next week. And I love this phrase that he uses all the time, which is liquid cement.
Yeah.
And I just think it's the best way to envision what it is that you're trying to do with your clients. You want to be liquid cement. You want to get in, and you want to get in so much to the point where they can't think of living without you. There's lots of tips we're going to give you over the next, what is now 20 minutes, that's going to help you to create these client advocates. But the first thing that I wanted to mention is that not all of your clients are created equal. Not all clients are going to become advocates. You've got 4 types of clients. You've got prospects who you're not working with, so you've got none of their jobs. You've got customers where you've maybe got 1 of their jobs. You've then moved them up into clients. Clients is where you've got some of their jobs, and then advocates is where you've got pretty much all of their jobs. So you've got 4 stages of client relationship. Now, not all of them are going to get to advocacy stage, and your job really is to audit your clients. And if you want information on how to do that, contact us. But audit your clients, work out which category they live in already, and what your plan is going to be to try and become to try and create advocates. Now, obviously, not all clients are going to become advocates because internal, external forces or whatever. But the idea is to audit your clients first. You decide which ones you think are going to provide you the best return on investment, and therefore the ones that are worthy and worth creating a plan. And a plan really is an advocacy plan. It's a liquid cement plan. It's a plan that you put together over a 30 and 90-day sprint, I would suggest. That's a number of things that you do and stuff that you say and things that you're going to ask for in order to transition that relationship from where you've got them now, which is customer to client or client to advocate. And in that plan, you've got to have a number of critical factors, really. The first thing is you have to be able to measure it. So you have to be able to measure this plan. And advocacies aren't really measured in feels, are they, James? Because we can't pay our mortgage with feels.
No, we can't. Joe, I want to come back to advocacy because I just want to put something in a little bit earlier, because obviously we're talking at the end of the spectrum and we need to go through the start of the spectrum. And one of the things that we talk about on the Retained Recruiter Academy, which is our training program to help people try and make that transition from contingent to converting some or all of their business through to a consultative retained recruiter sale, is we talk about the journey, the marketing journey. And you go from the unknown to the known to the prospect, as you said, that's where somebody's in touch with you, going through to the customer, which is somebody who buys from you occasionally, through to the client, which is where most people stop. And we're obviously right to the far end of the spectrum, which is the advocacy stage. And one of the ways to help people do that is, and again, something else we talk about, it's not us, and I'll give you a reference point for people to look up on, but we actually also talk about something called the Dream 100, which is a program really by a guy called Chet Holmes. It's a book, but also I was speaking to one of our clients. They're actually on one of their workshops this week. So Chet and Amanda Holmes doing the Dream 100, which is all talking about this journey as well. There's all variants of this, but breaking down and categorizing your clients and looking, as I said, Joe, just auditing your own clients. Don't mind auditing the client, auditing who's on your list. Where are they really? And when we do this exercise in training, we ask people to say, how many, we don't talk about advocates at the first part because that's really, as I said, that's the liquid cement stage. But for those people listening now, just ask yourself this question. How many clients do you have? And here's our definition of a client. A client is somebody who will turn to you every time they need to recruit. We might be getting close to the advocacy here, but a client is somebody, and how many do you have? And when we get fresher, younger faces on the training program, who've been in recruitment for say 3, 4, 5 years, they say, I've got 15, 20 of those. And really? I'm gonna hold you to that one later. We say in the training course, and then you get the wiser ones, that the people around the block say, you know what, I've probably got 4, maybe 5 of those. And I say, well, that's probably the accurate number. That's probably how many you've got. And those are your critical clients at this moment in time. Now, we need to move them away from clients into advocates. And we need to have a strategy that's going to help us take them over. Because the advocates are the people who will stay with you forever. They're the people you do put into liquid cement. But when you have such a few number of relationships, it actually focuses the mind on what can I do to strengthen those. And I had a very good client of ours come to me, and I first worked with him, must have been 12 years ago. And one of the things he'd done, and one of the things I always remember, everyone knows ABC in sales, always be closing, but sometimes when you're in business development, you've got to be ABP, always be prospecting. You've always got to be linking out, because people do go through a life cycle. And you get into advocacy, but advocacies, like clients, they will sometimes drop off because people hire. And this client I'm talking about, he came to me, and it happened to him through COVID. COVID was the catalyst for actually a lot of his clients say, you know what, time for me to hang up my boots, and I'm going to hand over the ropes to somebody younger in the business and step out. And so his clients who've been with him for 10 years at least, all of a sudden he said, I stopped prospecting, and now post COVID, I don't have any clients. That's what he said, because the companies are still there. They're big companies, but there's new people, and I haven't forged the relationships. I haven't gone down through that side of things. So don't forget that even when you move people through these stages, prospects, customers, advocates, don't forget to always be filling the funnel at the bottom, always be filling the marketing funnel, to going from the unknowns to the knowns to the prospects, taking those people on that journey. That's a different thing. And obviously in our Retained Recruiter Academy, we also run marketing workshops to help people realize that, you've got to do some of those things. Anyway, I digress, Joe. Let's get back to some of those advocacies and what we can do to sort of help people there, because how do you move people from one stage to another, I suppose, is the challenge that most people face.
So, Planner's dropped a really good comment in the comments section. And if anyone else has any good ideas or any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat. So we're talking here about the lifetime value of a client. And again, something that, we are relatively transactional by nature. We're quite short-termist by nature. It's always about the next deal and the next deal and the next deal. But actually, if you're in this for the long term, it's about really thinking of the lifetime value of your client. And then how much time is it worth putting and investing into this in order to transition clients into advocacies. Now, the thing is you can't really transition them into an advocacy without them knowing. It's not like a secret thing that we're doing without them knowing. Excuse me. Hay fever, guys. How bad is that right now? Even inside. So you have to create a plan. The plan is about moving them from where they are now to where you want them to be. You could use like a typical GROW model, for example. So goal, reality, obstacles, way forward. But you want to put a plan together. But also you want to start thinking about sharing that plan with the client, sharing the intention that we'd like to build a really, really well-established, long-lasting relationship with you. We value you as a client, and we really want to move into, being able to add as much possible value as we can to your organization as your recruitment partner. So I think the first thing is to come up with a plan. The second one is to then agree the plan and then share the plan with the client. Communication is absolutely key. There's no point sitting there either thinking you're providing a really great service for your clients, because if you're not asking them, they're on the receiving end of it. You could think you've got the best service on the planet, but they might have a very different thought about this. I mean, I had a situation as a training client where one of my training clients, working with them, and it's always very, very risky to spend a lot of your time working with one client. We know that because the psychological contract starts to shift. But anyway, you know, out of the blue one day, he sent me an email and said, we've decided we're going to do this instead. And this was years ago. And I phoned him up immediately and I said, why? Why have you decided that you're going to move in a different direction? And they said, oh, it's because this other organization, because always someone else creeping in, this other organization has said that they could do this, this, and this for us. And I said, yes, but I can do that. He didn't know that. Whose fault is that? Mine, 100% my fault, because I'm not adding value. I'm not going to him and saying, James, you know, what do you think of the service that we're providing? What could we do better? What could we do that we haven't already done? So having like a stop, start, continue conversation with the client. What can we continue to do because you like it? What should we stop doing because you don't like it? What should we start doing because you'd like us to do it? That as an initial plan, I think is critical, because we can't second guess what clients want. If you want to know what a client wants, ask them. You know, so service reviews, I think, are paramount. Creating a plan in order to then get you to whatever the goal looks like. Creating reviews throughout, because God knows what can happen in the meantime. But also creating a set of measures as well. So what will great look like? What will it look like when you've got the service that you really want from us? You know, what will it look like to us? What will it look like to them? So that's not just revenues, it's ratios, it's time to hire, it's fill rates. It's looking at your retention rates as well, because it's not just about people you put in. It's about making sure that they stay long term and enable the growth of the business. So always thinking about, put your plan together, make your plan smart, make it measurable, share it with the client, and then make sure that you've got reviews throughout. Because if you're not meeting with your clients, somebody else probably is.
Absolutely. I think one of the things that we need to, and I go back to earlier episodes, and if you've not seen them, please do find them on replay. But one of the mindset changes that you need to adopt to deliver this type of service is you need to move away from thinking like a recruiter and more to thinking like a management consultant. You know, we've said that, you know, become a management consultant who specializes in talent acquisition. And what your journey here is, it's to help the client understand that, you know, you want to see what the best outcome for them is. So you are their strategic partner, and that means you are thinking about what's the impact, what's the consequence of why we're hiring. You know, so it's not just about, oh, we need to hire 5 people this year. If you hire 5 people, what's the impact of that? Why are you doing that? What do you expect from that increase in headcount? What are the outcomes? And those are the things you need to sort of share and get them thinking. And then they're thinking, okay, well, yeah, and then you can start to think, okay, how should we plan those? You know, and some of it's timing. You know, and if you're an advocate, you're almost part of the annual planning process with this organization. Yeah. You know, so listen, we're planning in Q3 to hire a new project manager. Great. Okay. Well, if you're planning to hire somebody in Q3, you know, typically those people have, you know, 2 months notice period, you know, a month to hire program, maybe 2 months to hire. So we need to start that hiring process back in, you know, the start of Q2 if you want somebody Q1. All of those type of things, you're sort of actually sharing with the client what the outcomes are, Joe. And as you mentioned, communication, sharing the plan. Don't say, oh, you know, don't have the surprise that you had, Joe. And I'm sure people listening to this have had that very same process as well, where, you know, you get that phone call to say, oh, they can do this, that, and the other. And you think, well, I can do that. And as you said, whose fault is it? Yours for not actually deciding, how can I maintain this client? How can I look after it? And how can I sort of, make a difference to the organization? And then making sure that, you know, Joe, you mentioned the psychological contract thing, but it is almost like having a contract to say, this is what I'm going to invest in you, and this is what I want back from you. You know, we talk about skin in the game, and that's part of the retained relationship. And we talk about moving clients away from being, I don't mean transactional in this case, but a client being a transaction in the period, in the year, actually to being an advocate who contracts you for the year. Yeah, in terms of, you know, we talk about things like, I know people know RPOs for the big things, but, you know, the big organizations. But on a smaller level, you can do managed service provider contracts where you agree with the client you're going to look after that program for them over the period. So you contracted, so that way, you know, you both got an interest in actually delivering the right type of service. You've got a contract, you've got the service reviews, and we're making sure we deliver outcomes that impact the client's organization. Yeah, it's good for them, and obviously therefore good for us. And that's the measure of starting to get advocacy going in the right direction, so that we're all there. Have I?
Yeah.
You know, I thought I lost my video on my screen. I thought, have I been disconnected?
Oh no, don't go away again. No, don't. I mean, do you know what? Weirdly, talking about technology, that's a brilliant segue, and I'm pretty sure you did that on purpose, James, because I think one of the we talk about consequences. Then the consequences to the client of not getting the right people in, or the right people on time, or but also the consequence to us as businesses. You always know, James, I'm completely convinced the machines are going to take over. But as recruiters, if we don't start moving to a more consultative way of working with our clients, with all of these things in place, the consequences for us as an organization are pretty grim. Like, how many of the people listening today are probably starting to see that they're being cut out of some vacancies or some clients because the client wants to do it themselves. Now, I'm a great believer that there's always an element of recruitment that we specialize in and clients don't. So we can still run alongside any kind of direct hiring campaigns or the machines and the technology that they're bringing in. But if all we're doing is continuing to send CVs to job specs, machines can do that now, and they can do it for 10%, which is a frightening place. So I think now is a great time to think about, you're either going to have to drop your fees or you're going to have to up your game. And just because you've got lots of jobs, it doesn't mean the market's great. The market is still shifting and it is changing. And now is a great time to invest time in your clients and your candidates. We talk a lot about candidate advocacy as well. They are your eyes and ears and megaphones out into the marketplace. And I know it's really difficult, James. There's a lot of people who'll be sat here today saying, it's all well and good for you two sat there. I'm too busy. I'm too busy to do all of this. I mean, I would argue that you're too busy to not do all of this, because lots of jobs does not make lots of revenue, and a smart return, a smart cost and time efficient way of working.
Yeah, and you talk about time management there, Joe. And it's the age-old problem, particularly for a lot of recruitment businesses are small micro businesses. So you're trying to do everything, and you might have outsourced a virtual assistant in another country, for example, to help you with some of the base, or part-time resourcer. But the pressures that come on a business owner are really, and that's where you've got to actually look at yourself, and that's where you might need a coach to sort of look at your time management and say you've got to, and we said before, Joe, allocate chunks in your diary to do the right work. It's very easy to get busy doing the wrong things. Just because your VAT return needs to be done today, or whatever day, doesn't mean that's the most important thing, because you can do your VAT return at 10 o'clock at night. You can't speak to clients at 10 o'clock at night unless you're working in a different time zone. So let's not have any smart answers there. So making sure you put time aside for doing those important activities is really critical. And that's that mindset shift that you're going to have to do. And looking after your relationships is critical if they're going to be long term. And if you're in this for the long term, I assume people listening to this, they run their own businesses, they've come into this, they've built a dream. I'm planning to do this and this over the next few years, whether it's lifestyle or building a business, doesn't matter what. But you're not going to do that if you're constantly transactional. If you're constantly sort of taking on lots of vacancies and pushing out CVs, as I say, Joe, we're going to get overtaken by the machines. Rec tech, automation, it's there. It's not going away. You've got to see, how can you complement that? How can that be a part of the service that you deliver, so that you actually deliver multiple value points along the way? It's not about just being, if it's just about providing CV, that I think that's dead. If you're not adding some type of value, the client's going to say, I can just go to a machine and it'll spit out 5 CVs for me. The algorithms are all there. You can do that. And why do we know that? Well, that's what we do. We go onto LinkedIn for running a search, and we ask it to search for candidates who've got this keyword, this industry, this geography, etc., etc., etc. Bang, you've got your long list. Well, clients can do that. So you've got to find ways to add value, and that's all coming back around to this advocacy point, to say that you've got to have a vested interest between each other. You've got to show the client where you add value. You've got to show them what your differentiators are. And it's very difficult to find USPs out there, but just having the same old SPs as everybody else isn't good enough. You've got to show the client differentiation, where it is you add value in your process. How are you going to help them? And we talked about in previous circles about this, our 3 what we call pivot points, but have to be differentiators, about how we help clients reduce commercial downtime, because time is money. How we help improve their assessment and selection of new candidates, which ultimately leads to greater retention, which ultimately leads to number 3, which is we help them reduce their overall cost to hire. And we've got the bad hire calculator process in there as well. We've got so many things that we can talk to people about, Joe, and so many things we can share with them. So we'd love it if people are interested in finding out more about what we can do for them, to get in touch with us. And Joe, I just want to do a little, because how far are we from the end? Few minutes, 5 minutes from the end. I just want a little trailer for next week. So next week, Joe is having a well-deserved holiday. It's Easter time, so Joe, enjoy. Turn off that tech again, Joe, for the week. So
I'll try.
And so next week, on the screen next to me, I'm actually going to have Plum Ivanoff. Plum is the co-founder and chairman of iIntro, and I'm going to be sharing thoughts and views with him on the state of the market, where we want to go, all lots of things like that. It's going to be a rodeo, Joe. I mean, you're going to miss that.
It'll be amazing. It'll be amazing. It really will. It really will. You have to tune in. Plum is a font of all knowledge.
Absolutely, but
amazing.
He's got some great opinions and views and thoughts to share with people. And one of Plum's great things about him is he's a great share of how we can get there. But again, please do get in touch. But anyway, Joe, let's just summarize. Have we covered the 3 main points that we said we start off? Because I've lost track. We spoke about
no, we haven't. But then we never do. So let's be consistent in our inconsistency, shall we? I suppose we've got a couple of minutes left to talk about the bright side of this, that is social proofing. And that actually, when you do this right, and it's not going to work with everybody, nothing works with everybody all the time, but you have to try and build these client relationships and build these advocacies in your organization. But if you do that as well, you've got a great platform there to get testimonials and case studies from your existing clients and candidates, and use those, put those back into the top end of the marketing funnel. We talk a lot about this in the Retained Bootcamp that we run, which is a 4-week training program we run for everybody who is an iIntro client. And we talk a lot about that, about actually social proofing is massive. It's one of the 6 laws of influence, or one of the 6 powers of persuasion. And if enough people look like something is the right thing to do, it will attract others as well. So always, look to provide a great service to your clients, ask for things back in return, set that service level agreement, start moving your clients. And then when you do get positive feedback from your clients, because, that's what we're looking for, as well as the critique to make the service better. But when you do get positive feedback, don't be afraid to say to them, can you write that down? Would you mind writing that down for me? Would you mind if we use that to validate our service out there in the world? Because actually, if you are trying to build new clients, you have to come across as credible, and you can't be credible instantaneously. You have to build credibility over a period of time, but you can be credible by association. So if enough other organizations who are relatively well-known names by their peers are saying that you're providing them with a great service, then you become credible by association. So it can actually still lead to a great way to then develop new business. So existing clients, build client relationships, use that to leverage new relationships. And the flip side of that, do it with your candidates as well. Candidate case studies and testimonials, and use that to generate more candidates in the marketplace.
Just one of the things there, Joe, on social proof in there with client testimonials is make sure the testimonials aren't just the normal dull platitudes of, oh, yes, James is a great recruiter and it's really a great experience to work with him. No, get the client to talk about what was the impact of what we did. What did it do for us? Because that's when people are reading those, they want to see, oh, that's what I want. It made a difference here. It wasn't just, oh, he's a really good recruiter, knows the market and can help you find the next great hire in your company. Really think about some of those advocacy points that we're trying to stress here, to sort of say, why you're making a difference, what are the consequences, what you achieved, what the success measures were, the goals we shared. Those are things that make a really. And if you can do a video testimonial, I know that's not for everybody, but if you can do a video testimonial, they're really powerful as well to get on your website, because honestly, they are that social proofing tool. And the word of mouth side of things, Joe, is actually it comes from this as well, doesn't it? Because people do stuff. And I was talking to a client, one of our clients in the US yesterday, and they were telling me how their word of mouth it's one of the biggest parts of their business. They're very specialist, very niche in what they're doing. They've been going for 25 years, so you'd expect some of that. But the work that just comes in off that, it's like almost they're almost an advocate before they actually even talk to the client. So that's where we sort of need to get people.
Yeah. Oh, for Paul in the comments as well. So LTV is lifetime value.
Yeah.
So just we're using lots of TLAs today, so we just need to break some of those down. So lifetime value with a client, what you think and do you know what, can I just say, April, we're in April. I mean, we're in April. How frightening is that? But actually it's a brilliant opportunity. A lot of people are now going into their new year. Now is a great time to have these pipeline meetings with your clients. You know, if you want to work out the lifetime value, if they are worth you investing the time to try and build advocacy with them, then have a pipeline meeting. You know, what are they projecting for the next year? What's their pipeline looking like? What's the recruitment looking like? How can you help to make that better, to improve it, to reduce time, reduce cost, save them money, enable retention?
Absolutely.
Great time to do it now.
Well, listen, Joe, that's been a whirlwind, a maelstrom of information that we shared. If you want to join us, please do connect on the link there. We'll gladly have a chat with you. Joe, enjoy your week off.
When I get there. Yes, limping to them.
Make me go solo in a few weeks' time.
I know.
Thanks very much for listening, everybody. Hope you've enjoyed it. Love to hear your comments. Love to have any feedback. Love to speak to you soon. So it's goodbye from me.
And it's goodbye from me. Thanks, guys.
Thanks very much.
Have a great week.